Tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
This is episode 136 of That Shakespeare Life. That Shakespeare Life is now available on our very own digital app. This app works on your tablet, phone, or TV and lets you explore the history of William Shakespeare with exclusive content, interviews, and documentaries not available anywhere else. You can cook, dance, and play your way through the life of William Shakespeare, all without any commercials. Find out more at cassidycash.com/experience and stay tuned after the episode for even more details.
Hi. I'm Philip Schweitzer. I'm the author of Shakespeare and the Remains of Richard III. Another great method for studying the life of William Shakespeare includes listening to this. It's That Shakespeare Life with my friend Cassidy Cash.
There was a stone in Shakespeare's time and for about perhaps 1,000 years before, though it wasn't always called London Stone. Yes, a contemporary of William Shakespeare's, John Stowe, wrote The Survey of London, a complete account of London in his own time. It was first published in 1598. He says that in Candlewick Street, which is now Cannon Street, on the south side of the road, in the roadway, there was a great stone, pitched upright, very deep in the ground, bound with iron bars. And if a cart ran against it, it was so solid, the cartwheel broke.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
In William Shakespeare's Henry VI Part 2, the character Jack Cade declares himself Lord Mortimer of London by striking London stone and then sitting upon the stone to declare his royalty. While it makes a dramatic scene for a theatrical play, the story was based in actual history, and the way Shakespeare tells the story with his own personal embellishments tells us as modern theatergoers something interesting about the Tudor opinion of the real Jack Cade that was present as Shakespeare was writing. While Shakespeare seems to base his plays and his portrayal of Jack Cade on the history of Holinshed's chronicles, there are some first-hand accounts of people who witnessed Jack Cade's procession into London from actual history, as well as some variances between Shakespeare's quarto and folio versions of Henry VI Part 2, which shine light on exactly what Shakespeare thought about this colorful figure from English history. London stone that Jack Cade chooses to strike as he declares himself lord of the city was more than just a passing fictional narrative by Shakespeare. The real London stone was a major landmark for England, with native travelers using it in a similar fashion to how Big Ben is used today. People all over the world not only recognize this stop in London as a representative of England herself, but many foreign dignitaries from the 16th century went out of their way to visit London stone as an important stop on their visit to the city. Here today to walk us through some of the portraits of Jack Cade from Shakespeare's lifetime, as well as additional items from the medieval collections at the Museum of London to tell us the real history of London stone and its place in popular culture from Shakespeare's lifetime, is our guest, John Clark. John Clark was for many years curator of the medieval collections of the Museum of London. He worked on the design of the Museum of London's first medieval gallery when the museum opened in 1976 and carried out projects to update the gallery in 1996 to 1999, particularly the displays dealing with Anglo-Saxon London. He produced a number of temporary exhibitions, including Alfred the Great 849 to 899, London's Forgotten King, which came out in 1999, and Chaucer's Londoners, A Companion of Sundry Folk from 2000. He was lead curator on the project to create the museum's present medieval London gallery, which opened in 2005 and replaced that of 1976. Since his retirement in 2009, he has maintained his connection with the museum with the honorary title of Curator Emeritus. He is also an honorary reader at the University College London Institute of Archaeology. Having published The Medieval Horse and Its Equipment from 1150 to 1450, Medieval Finds from Excavations in London in 1995, a standard work which is still in print, he continues research into the development of medieval and later horse equipment. He has long had an interest in the relationship between London's real history and the legends that have grown up about the city and the ways Londoners have interpreted the physical remains of London's past. He has published articles on this theme on the mythology of London stone, on Geoffrey of Monmouth's account of the foundation of London as New Troy, on the supposed Temple of Diana on the site of St. Paul's Cathedral, and on Gog and Magog, the city giants, and has lectured widely on these and other topics. Hello, John. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me on. Yeah.
Was there an actual physical stone in London when Shakespeare was writing about it in his plays, and does it still survive today?
Well, yes to both questions. There was a stone in Shakespeare's time and for about perhaps 1,000 years before, though it wasn't always called London stone. But yes, a contemporary of William Shakespeare's, John Stowe, wrote The Survey of London, a complete account of London in his own time. It was first published in 1598. He says that in Candlewick Street, which is now Cannon Street, on the south side of the road, in the roadway, there was a great stone, pitched upright, very deep in the ground, bound with iron bars. And if a cart ran against it, it was so solid, the cartwheel broke. And it was there in Shakespeare's time. It became an obstacle to traffic. So eventually it was moved across the road to the north side of the road where stood St. Swithin's Church. And for a time it stood against the south wall of the church. And eventually it was fixed into a cavity in the actual wall of the church. And if we... Oh, you're disabled screen sharing?
That should have done it. Try now.
Yep. Right, there we are. Yes, as it was in the 19th century with an iron grid to protect it, and a policeman guarding it for some strange reason.
Wow.
But there wasn't actually much left of it right then. The stone that John Stowe described, a great stone set deep in the ground, well, a French visitor, Monsieur Grenard, a few years earlier than John Stowe, in 1578, had measured it. His time it stood 3 feet high, 2 feet across, and 1 foot from back to front, which isn't really all that big. But by the time we saw it in the 19th century, there was only about 1.5 feet of it left, just the top bit behind that iron grill. So it stayed there until the Second World War. But then in the Blitz, the bombs in the great fire raid on London in December 1940, the church was burnt out. The ruins, with London stone still behind its grill, stayed there until about 1960, and they eventually demolished the church, put up a new office building. London stone was re-erected in a little cavity in the wall of a new office building. It stayed there for another 50 years until, well, it was about 5 years ago. That building was demolished and they built a new one. That one has a rather fancier setting.
Oh,
London
yes,
stone.
It does.
You can see it there in the middle. It's Portland stone, very fine. And that's what faces you if you come out of Cannon Street railway station today, perhaps going to work before coronavirus. But passed by commuters every day who don't bother to look at it. But it's still there, yes.
That's fascinating. John writes about a house being built at London Stone, where London's first mayor resided in the 12th century during the reign of Richard I. John, is there an association between London Stone and the office of mayor?
I think it's more an individual personal association with Henry Fitz-Aylwin, who was the first mayor of London. Because London Stone, when we first hear it, is already a sort of landmark. It's an address. People live at London Stone or near London Stone. From the 1150s, Canterbury Cathedral acquired some property in London, which included a stone house and other buildings near St Mary Bothwell Church on the north side, not far from the stone that is called London Stone. Great fire in the 1150s started from a house near London Stone. And then 1189, Henry Fitz-Aylwin, first mayor of London. But it was really his father, Aylwin, who was Aylwin of London Stone, because the Fitzaylwin house was near London Stone, but not actually at London Stone. If you look at a detailed, reconstructed map of London in the early Middle Ages, London Stone, there's St Mary Bothwell just over there, St Swithin Church on the north side, and the Fitzaylwin's house is some way back from the road, up St Swithin's Lane. But you could get to it through a passageway coming down the west side of the church with a gateway almost opposite London Stone. So that's why I think Fitzaylwin, or Aylwin rather, Henry Fitzaylwin's father, was at London Stone, because the main gate to his house was just there. But it didn't last. After Henry Fitzaylwin, no other members of the family are mayors. This is not an official mayor's residence, it's just the personal residence of the Fitzaylwins. So no, I don't think that actually works.
On a map from the 1550s, about 10 years before Shakespeare was born, London Stone is identified as a key landmark. Now, you alluded to this earlier when you suggested travelers through Cannon Street on their way to work would see London Stone as a landmark. And you also mentioned that people from Shakespeare's time would talk about living at London Stone or near London Stone. But I wonder if 16th century travelers, and by extension, Shakespeare's theater audience, would have known where the stone was and what it represented. Was it just this thing that was there, or was it something that was appreciated and respected for the culture?
There's a very early map of London. It's known as the copperplate map. It survives not as a printed map, but as the printing plates from which it was made. But only 3 sections actually survive. 2 of those are in the Museum of London. And one of them, fortunately, is for the central of the city of London, around which centering on London Stone. And if you look at it, there it is, named London Stone, just in front of the door of St Swithin's Church, St Swithin's Lane up the side. And it's one of the few things actually named on the map. Many streets are named, many churches are named, and other important buildings, like the Guildhall. But why name London Stone on a map? It's because people could find their way around the map by finding this is London Stone, we turn left. That's why people had their addresses at London Stone, because everybody knew where London Stone was. But it became a tourist attraction. It's mentioned in a couple of poems in medieval and Tudor times. It's in a play, yes, not only Shakespeare, but his contemporary William Horton, a comedy play called An Englishman for My Money, when there's a scene when a group of foreign visitors are being toured around London in pitch darkness and bump into London Stone. So the audience would say, oh, well, we know what that is. Visitors like the Frenchman Grenard, who measured it, he was shown it and told a strange story about its origin. Nobody actually knew its origin or what its purpose was. There were all sorts of strange stories circulated. But they knew you had to see it. Several foreign visitors visiting London in the 1580s, 90s, early 1600s saw London Stone. They were told it was there before the city was built. They were told it was erected by King Lud. They were told it marked the centre of the city. They were told it was a place where proclamations were made. But there's no actual evidence any of these are true. It becomes one of the sites you must see on a visit to London.
John, as Shakespeareans, we associate Cade's striking of London Stone within Shakespeare's play as a fictional event because we think of Shakespeare's play as being a fictional story. However, in actual history, was there a real Jack Cade who physically struck London Stone?
Yes, though we have to think that Shakespeare was a bit biased about Jack Cade. Here he is in the scene, enter Cade and his rabblement in Henry VI Part 2. But Cade really wasn't like that at all. Or it's debatable, shall we say. Cade really existed. And if we trust the chroniclers, he really struck London Stone when his men came to London. Jack Cade or John Cade, known apparently as the Captain of Kent. We don't know really his origins, but in 1450 there were outcries against the corrupt government of Henry VI, and an armed rising in Kent was led by Jack Cade, who took the name of John Mortimer. Seems to be referring or claiming relationship to Richard Mortimer, the fairly popular Duke of York. And the army gathered at Blackheath, just like in the Peasants' Revolt 7 years before. But these weren't peasants. Isn't a peasant uprising. These were sort of middle-class people. They were fairly wealthy yeoman farmers and townsfolk, wealthy villagers, and even some of the lesser gentry of the counties around London who joined the campaign. And they gathered in Blackheath, and in beginning of July, 2nd or 3rd, the chronicles actually disagree, they crossed London Bridge and entered London, and seemed to have been welcomed by some Londoners who were certainly on their side, who agreed the government was corrupt at first. And Jack Cade rode through London. Some say he rode like a conqueror. And when he got to London Stone, he got off his horse and struck it with his sword and cried, "Now is Mortimer, lord of this city," his accepted name, the name he'd taken. So that's the story we get from various chroniclers.
Are there surviving first-hand records of real people who witnessed Jack Cade striking London Stone under the name of John Mortimer?
Not strictly eyewitnesses. What we have is a number of chroniclers, some who were writing within 10, 15 years of the events and clearly had access to eyewitness reports, or rather perhaps people's memories of what actually happened. Some of these chroniclers were Londoners. Some of them were actually, one of them was an alderman of London. So you could think they had family memories, even if they weren't there themselves. And they do say, some of them, that this is what happened, that he rode into the city and he struck his sword on the stone.
So there's conflicting reports, though, about whether it was a sword or a staff. Do we know for sure whether he struck it with a sword or a staff? Does it matter?
Well, I think it does. And it's very clear it was a sword. The chroniclers, all the chroniclers agree, all the chroniclers who mentioned the episode at all say he struck it with a sword. And Shakespeare would have known that from his sources. He was getting his story of Jack Cade's rebellion from people like Edward Hall, the chronicler, or Holinshed, who had got it from these earlier chroniclers and say he struck it with the sword and cried, "Now is Mortimer lord of the city." So the two facts about it that Shakespeare knew was that it was a sword and the cry of "Now is Mortimer lord of the city." And in the very first, as far as I understand it, I'm not a Shakespearean scholar, but as I understand it, the earliest printed version of the play in the third quarto, says he struck it with a sword. It's only in the first folio edition, 1623, that it suddenly becomes a sword. Somebody's been editing it. So whether Shakespeare himself decided at some point in his career that a staff was better than a sword, or one of the editors, the printers, turned it into a staff, for whatever reason, I don't know. So I'm a little puzzled that in most modern productions of the play, nobody questions it's a staff, because a sword is much more appropriate if you think about it.
As a warrior.
Yeah. A sword is it's an emblem of status and of authority. And in fact, Jack Cade walking around the streets of London with a sword in his hand could actually have been arrested on the grounds that he wasn't of appropriate status. He wasn't a knight of the realm. But there's one account of this Jack Cade riding in procession through the streets of London that says his sword was carried before him as if he was a lord. And the lord in question might have been the mayor of London, because there are various illustrations in Tudor and Jacobean times of the mayor of London riding in procession. And in front walks the official sword bearer carrying the city's state sword. So it's an emblem of office as a sword. In that sense, Jack Cade, in having one of his processions with a sword bearer, seems to be accepting that the sword is an important thing. It's what you actually need to exert your authority, presumably to exert your authority on London Stone. So I'm pretty sure he struck it with a sword, not a staff.
So in Shakespeare's Henry VI, Part 2, he is seen striking London Stone. And while the folio and quarto versions disagree about it being a sword versus a staff, why was it important for him to strike it? Why did he need to hit London Stone to make this declaration?
Well, we don't actually know why he struck his sword on the stone in the first place. There's no tradition. There's nothing to say anybody before Jack Cade struck London Stone with a sword. There's nothing to suggest anybody after Jack Cade struck London Stone with a sword. The idea that it's somehow symbolic outside Jack Cade's own personal vision, I think you get into circular arguments. You say he did it because all other people did it, and you say other people did it because Jack Cade did it, but they didn't. So I wonder whether it's just to be some nice piece of public theatre, public performance by Jack Cade, who was, according to the chroniclers, a quite intelligent chap who was very geared up, sort of personal relations and making an image of himself. So did he just say, somebody told him, this is London Stone? And he thinks, well, if this is London Stone, I strike my sword with it, and by that very act, I conquer London. So I think before Shakespeare got there, Jack Cade himself was setting up a bit of public theatre.
After he strikes the stone in the play, Jack Cade goes on to sit on the stone as if it were a royal throne. John, did Jack Cade actually sit on London Stone as Shakespeare portrays?
I don't think so. Again, all we have is this very brief mention in the chroniclers that he struck it with his sword. One of them says this happened not when he entered London, but the next day when he was dragging the body of Lord Say and Seal, the very unpopular royal treasurer who had been beheaded, round the streets of London. And that account by a chap called John Bennett must be based on eyewitness accounts, because it's so particular about the route taken by Jack Cade and dragging the body of Lord Say and Seal. He was beheaded at Cheapside, dragged westwards out through Newgate, down the Old Bailey, in through Ludgate, past St Paul's Cathedral, along what was then Candlewick Street. And there, says John Bennett, Jack Cade went around a great stone, striking it with his sword. So was this Jack Cade doing the same thing twice, once when he entered London and once the following day? I don't know. It seems to be a very symbolic event. But nobody asked him why he did it. None of the chroniclers actually says he did this because. Some of them don't think it's important. Some of them just omit it entirely. But it was something that really happened, whereas sitting on London Stone, I don't think did. This is Shakespeare pulling together various things that Jack Cade actually did. Yes, he did make proclamations. We didn't make them at London Stone. We made them at St Magnus Church at the northern end of London Bridge. And the proclamations weren't about making the conduits run with wine. They were about restraining his followers from looting. He did seem to pass judgment on his followers for things he regarded as treason, but he certainly didn't claim, as William Shakespeare makes him do, to be inaugurating a reign. And even this business of making the conduits run with wine, that was a sort of royal prerogative. That happened when royalty visited London. And he talks about treason. So this is just Shakespeare emphasising his view that Jack Cade was claiming royal privileges. The chroniclers don't make him do that in quite the same way. So it's very theatrical, but it is actually fiction. And the whole of this scene in Shakespeare is, I think, played for laughs. It's Shakespeare's vision of Jack Cade as a buffoon, as an ignorant troublemaker and a bully. So it's not fiction, quite, but it's a long way from historical fact.
I know we would love to learn more about Jack Cade and London Stone. What are some of your favorite books or resources you can recommend we use to learn more?
Well, London Stone now has a website of its own, www.londonstone.org.uk, with all sorts of pictures and links to other sources. It's certainly worth looking at. My own article on the subject of Jack Cade at London Stone was published a long while ago in 2007, but it is available online in academia.edu under my name, Jack Cade at London Stone. Possibly worth reading.
Yes, excellent article. I enjoyed that one.
The other thing is that you can actually explore Shakespeare's London in depth, because there's a marvellous map of early modern London, digitised, put online by the University of Victoria, Canada, mapoflondon.uvic.ca/map.htm. And then you can zoom in on that map. The map is actually based on one of the earliest printed maps, printed from woodcuts in about 1560. And you can zoom into it, scroll around it. You can find London Stone and zoom in on that. Click on it, and up come windows and text and links to further information, historical information about it. Jack Cade himself, well, when I wrote my article, the only thing available to me, recent publication, was I.M.W. Harvey's Jack Cade's Rebellion of 1450. It's still around, though it's a bit out of date by now, because Alexander Kaufman has been doing a lot of work on the Jack Cade's Rebellion and the sources of it, sources of information, those chroniclers I mentioned. And he's written several articles and a couple of recent books, particularly homing in on the literary sources. And most recently, this source book. I haven't had a chance to look at it myself yet, but it might make me revise some of my ideas about the chroniclers, because it contains all the relevant passages from all the chroniclers, translated into English, with lots of other historical sources as well. So if anyone's interested in the Jack Cade Rebellion, that really is the place to start now.
Those are excellent resources. We link to all of these resources in the show notes for today's episode, so make sure you stay tuned. At the end of our talk, we'll give you the URL for where to find those. John, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible, so your choice would be in addition to those.
Yes. It's the old Desert Island Discs program.
It is indeed.
Yeah, quite. Well, I'm not a Christian, so I don't need the Bible. I'm not all that keen on the works of Shakespeare. What I would like is the complete Oxford English Dictionary. That will keep me going for a long time, I think. There's always a lot to learn from a good dictionary.
That's an excellent choice, I think, for sure. And despite not being a fan of Shakespeare or the Bible, I think we'll still be friends with you anyway. We appreciate very much you being here and sharing this history with us. Thank you so much. To find images of Jack Cade as well as London Stone, including maps for where to find it today, and a screenshot of the map John shares on a screen during today's episode of the route Jack Cade took when parading the dead body of the royal treasurer through London, be sure to visit the show notes for today's episode. Find all of this history and even more about William Shakespeare at CassidyCash.com/episode 136. That's CassidyCash.com/EP136. How would you like to see the video of this week's interview? You can watch this interview as well as other exclusive interviews not available anywhere else right inside That Shakespeare Life app. That's right! That Shakespeare Life is now streaming on our very own digital app. We are very excited to make this available, and not only can you stream podcast episodes anywhere you go, but the app contains exclusive content like activities, games, documentary shorts, expert interviews, and animated plays, all free from ads and available anywhere you might be. You can learn Shakespeare's history from the experts who know him best while you're in the carpool line, cooking dinner, or even while you're working out. Take Shakespeare history with you wherever you go, all without any commercials. Download the app now at CassidyCash.com/experience. That's CassidyCash.com/experience. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life.